Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast or the YouTube channel. Today, I'm really happy to have Mark from American Debunk with us. He's going to talk to us about hoaxes and how to debunk the hoaxes. It's going to be a great conversation. I'm looking forward to this. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Very happy to have you here. I would like to know, let's start off with this. What is a hoax? How would you define it?
Yeah, so when we're talking hoaxes, I view it as a lie or a misrepresentation that is used to leverage either confirmation bias or shift the attention or beliefs of others.
And this is something, so we spoke about it quite a bit. It's something we have many examples in the political domain. It's also something I'm convinced applies in psychology. It leverages some psychological attributes that we have. And it's something that toxic people, narcissists use. And this is where it's going to be fascinating for me to cross Mark's expertise with political hoaxes and for us to see how it applies to individuals, how individuals use it. And we know that some of the toxic individuals are using it politically also. So let's dive into this. And incidentally, we might be referencing some political hoaxes. I'd like to first of all emphasize I care about the techniques used more than about who is using them. So even if it's someone that I care about dearly, let's say a family member who is hoaxing me, I want to know I'm being hoaxed regardless of who's doing it, and maybe even more if it's someone I care about. So any political examples that we might use, just assume it's completely nonpartisan. It's about the technique and the hoax. Um,
Mhm.
so with that being said, a hoax, how would you break down the different steps? How would you explain how it functions?
Yeah, so that's interesting because there's dozens of different methods that are used, but when it comes to the steps of creating a hoax and creating that deception, all you really need is someone to be speaking. Like in today's modern era, all you need is someone to be speaking or writing, and you're able to take that and create a misrepresentation or deception. Um, so, yeah, in terms of steps, it's selecting what to choose, figuring out how it can be misrepresented, and then moving with that. And in the political world, we see a lot of information laundering through the media and things like that. Um,
It's
but you could also see it, the steps of it, with taking something and laundering it to someone else,
hmm.
right? The deception, and then they run with that. Um,
The
so yeah, there's
image
a lot of different ways and steps that one can take, but it's pretty
the
powerful.
the image that comes to mind, I know sometimes there's the term a rupar that is used to pretty much explain this. The image I take is if I say only a mad person would say that you should eat squirrels, somebody snips out the last part and says, Fred just said you should eat squirrels. He's clearly mad. And I might say, I just said the opposite. People wouldn't believe that I actually said the opposite. I
Mhm.
mean, I think this is pretty much it. And any idea why this works psychologically?
Yeah, the selective video edit, it's because as soon as you remove the context of something, the subject can then assign the context. So you select the video or the clip you want, without all of that context, and then the user can create the meaning they want, right? And that's when it's leveraging confirmation bias, right? If I know that if you say you would never eat a squirrel, and I clip out eat a squirrel, I could say, hey, I got this. Wait till I tell the squirrels that they want to be eaten, right?
Uh-huh.
You get to assign the new meaning,
So
and leverage that.
this makes me think of something that we see with toxic people and reputation destruction. For
Hmm.
instance, when there's a breakup in the different narratives. Now, I find normally healthy, hinged people would say, well, I don't want to get into the details. It was a bit messy, keep it personal. But the less hinged people would start by labeling the other person as unhinged. And the sense I have is it creates a level of distrust, as in the person telling me the other person isn't trustworthy, this person is trustworthy. Therefore, I shift all of my focus to the other one, going, I need to filter everything. We can become a bit paranoid, have confirmation bias that you mentioned, but also creates a blind spot on the person who's telling me what to think and not how to think. Does that make sense?
Mm, that does make sense. Yeah, it's interesting.
Mm. And you were talking about assigning meaning. Could you speak a bit more about this?
Hmm. Yeah. So if I know that maybe there's a specific group of people who have a bias or set of beliefs, right? Um, I can take any text where I cut out the context or clip of a speech or anything and cut out that context, and then I can assign meaning to whatever I'm using
Hmm.
and cast it on others. Um, so I mean, we can get into hoaxes and look at specific examples if that would be helpful, but typically when there is no context, right? You're the statement or the clip might not even have any meaning. You have to usually the user gives it meaning.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, we can look at specific examples if you want. And I know you mentioned like it's the hoax methods that matter. And it's like, yes, like it doesn't matter what political affiliation you are.
Hmm.
Your team is using these hoax methods to uh, create hoaxes that are going to misrepresent or deceive people because they have goals, you know, and they're going to
Hmm.
use those to reach their goals and leverage confirmation bias. But yeah, it's all pretty interesting.
There, there's something just around this because, as you say, the different teams. We know there's been a lot of tribalism going on
Hmm.
politically in some countries more than others, and we know this is a very effective method to get what you want. So we could assume some teams might be, so teams, quote unquote. I don't think we should be thinking in terms of teams. I think we should be thinking that most of us are decent people. And then there's a small number of political parties we get to choose between, and they try to make us think we're on a specific team versus we're mostly decent people and we've got limited choice. Um, Now, this is a very effective method. So we could assume some team or some party or some group might choose to not use something effective. They might do that. But in most cases, I wouldn't see many of them saying, we're going to avoid using something that works because it wouldn't be in their best interest, especially as it's so effective, so powerful, and they can turn pretty much anything into it's pretty much the opposite of what's said, right?
Yeah, with the selective video editing for sure.
Mhm. Exactly. So if it works, it would be bizarre for anyone to say, ethically, I'm going to refuse doing it. So we could compare who does it more, who does it less. I don't know if there's a good way to compare it. I think we can just assume if we learn to recognize the technique, it's going to be less effective on us and we'll be functioning a bit more clearly. I think we'll probably take one or two examples. But before we get into the examples, I'd like to prepare people to understand that it's about the technique, reduce the risk of cognitive dissonance if it's an example that they believe in. And I'm certain that some of the, pretty much, regardless of the example we take, some listeners and viewers will be believing the hoax, and they might be having a pretty strong emotional reaction to finding out they've been hoaxed. There are a few angles I'd like to see. Number one, what are the components of a hoax? So we mentioned confirmation bias. Another one is how to recognize it. Another one might be how do we experience being hoaxed, and then how do you say de-hoax, unhoax ourselves? I think something along those lines. Does it work for you?
Sure.
Which one inspires you the most? The components of the hoax, how to recognize it, or how it feels and how it comes across us?
Um, maybe how it feels and how it comes uh, across first.
Brilliant. So, how does
Interesting.
it feel when we're being hoaxed? How so? What is our sensation?
Yeah, well, usually when you're hoaxed, there is an emotional response, especially if you don't recognize that it's a hoax. You'll feel strong emotional response, and that's usually the goal, right? It's either a strong negative arousal, so it might be anxiety or fear or anger, is a big one. But there also might be the feeling of, ah, I knew it. I knew that person was a bad person. Um, I knew I was right in those beliefs. And those are typical, right? Someone who's trying to leverage hoaxes are trying to get you to believe you're right, or they're trying to get you to feel some sort of strong negative emotion
Mm.
almost 100% of the time.
Yeah. There's, by the way, around the emotions, some of the work I do is around Paul Ekman's work on emotions, where it's interesting. He doesn't talk about positive or negative emotions. He talks about pleasant or unpleasant. And
Hmm.
the idea is we have seven universal emotions that we all have all around across cultures. And each of them tells us something about how we're interacting with the world around us. It's sort of akin to Daniel Kahneman's System One, the fast system, or
Hmm.
Jonathan Haidt talking about the rider and elephant. It's our body trying to protect us and keep us safe. In the emotions, one is pleasant, joy, and that gives us small pings to say, you're on the right track with your life, keep going. That's why we feel it in tiny pings. One is neutral, that's surprise. That's when we're trying to assess if there's a threat or a danger, or if we can relax. That's why often when we've been surprised, people laugh. It's a way of getting everyone together and going, it's okay, we can relax. But we open our eyes up wide, we sort of freeze to try to understand what's going on. Then five are unpleasant. Sadness is when we lost someone or something we cared about, so we can mourn and move on. Fear is when there's a threat or a possibility of a threat. It makes us hyper vigilant and alert because we don't want to miss the threat on the off chance it's a deadly threat. Threats can be fear of physical harm, it can be fear of social rejection because unconsciously we're still cave people, and if we're getting kicked out of the cave, we'll be eaten by a snake, tiger, crocodile, whatever. Fear also of commitment or fear of losing options. But I think the fear of social rejection, fear of threat are pretty massive. Then we have anger. Anger is really interesting. Anger is when we have a goal and there's an obstacle that prevents us from reaching the goal. So anger will give us the strength or courage to try to overcome the obstacle and reach the goal instead of giving up. If we give up, then we fall in sadness, but anger is there to help us reach the goal. Then the last two, contempt, that's when someone does something against our values, and disgust when there's something toxic happening. And it could be someone poisoning the well, so it could be physically toxic, like if I say, think of rotten fish, with, like, I'm not going to gross people out, but you can think of something inside the food that makes you completely disgusted, and then you sort of have this physical response with the nose in order to try to smell what's going on and see where it's toxic, or it could be toxic behavior. And all of these are so much knee jerk reactions that the face shows it in microseconds, hence the term microexpressions, which shows the emotions popping up and down. These are nearly impossible to control. And with the rider elephant metaphor or analogy, the idea is if the elephant is calm, so the body is calm, we can use system two and rational logical thinking. But if the elephant is panicking, like a rider can't really control a panicking elephant. So one of the easiest ways to manipulate people is to make them angry, upset, afraid, disgusted,
Hmm.
which is something we see with some online gurus who keep fueling the anger. Typically, of people who've been hurt, well, for example, people who've been hurt by narcissists, they watch videos of people who try to make them angry because the longer they stay angry, more they come back. So it's another form of manipulation.
Hmm.
So does it sort of play into why the anger and fear and probably also disgust, why they're effective?
Oh, 100%. And you touched on it with those two systems of thinking. I forget who the
Mhm.
author was of that book, but
Daniel Kahneman. Yep.
yeah, when you get your emotions ramped up like that, you pretty much abandon rational thought.
Mm.
And that's the idea behind that, right? So, like, you'll notice that hoaxes and media hoaxes and political hoaxes, they are always looking to just ramp up someone's emotions.
Hmm. So the first step is basically ramp up the emotions, feel an
Hmm.
emotional response, because then that or what would be the term? Something like it primes us, it prepares us to shut off the brain, and it makes us more suggestible.
Hmm.
Then
Correct.
what would be the second step?
Hmm. When I think about, I think about steps of hoax methods, but when I think of, like, if I'm like, there's different techniques people might use, right? Like selective video editing or um, anonymous sources and laundering and stuff like that. But when I think of steps of orchestrating a hoax, um, not really much else comes to mind than just creating the hoax and throwing it out there.
Hmm.
And hoaxes are sticky. It's like rolling a bomb, like into a garage and like shutting the door. Like, there it is. It's going to do all the damage.
Mm.
And social media these days, and the algorithms, it's just going to do all the work. The step is creating it, and then it's going to go do its thing.
Hmm.
Um, Typically, the public is going to do the rest because they're going to take it and run with it, and share it, or they're going to use it to solidify their beliefs. Or you touched on the social element earlier, where there's a lot of people who fear social rejection. Um, so a hoax might drop. They're going to immediately want to talk about it with their friends and show that, hey, I believe this too, right? And then it all just catches like wildfire. They're all validating each other.
Mm.
Um, Gets pushed out on social media, and everyone's running with it there.
Mm. The something came to mind as you were talking around this, which is step one: ramp up the emotions.
Hmm.
Usually around something like there's fear,
Hmm.
anger, disgust, and probably combination of them. Could be I'm afraid and I'm afraid, or something makes me angry. That produces fear. There's some level of uncertainty, as in I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I think this might be a big one. I don't know what the motivations of the person are, and it could be around the fear and the anger. Then my sense is, and tell me what you think about this. Someone then says, "Let me decode to you what's happening." So you can
Hmm.
buy into my narrative, which reduces the uncertainty, and all you have to do is believe, and you'll feel safer. In other words, and so you'll feel safer. Number one, because I'm giving meaning to what's happening, and you don't have to think. So you can use system one and just repeat what I'm saying, as opposed to taking a step back and wondering, how can I know the unknowable? As in, why someone did something. Like, how can I know it? So, number one, we have this. Number two, there might be confirmation bias, being, I want to believe this to be true because I feel safer, even if the narrative is that it's the end of the world. At least I don't have to worry about it. Because if I'm told it's the end of the world and someone's got it figured out, then I don't have to worry, versus I need to think. And most of us don't really enjoy thinking because it's scary, tiring, stressful. And then there might be the other element, which probably taps into some extent to how cults function, whether it's
Hmm.
a large cult, a spiritual cult, a political cult, or a cult of one, which is how it functions with narcissists, which is everyone around me believes this thing. If I dare to disagree 1%, so if I don't agree 100% all the time on everything, they're going to turn against me. And that's sort of the piranha culture. And my feeling is, in healthy cultures, if people disagree, I get curious, as in, how come? Are we seeing the same thing? Like, are we seeing the same movie on the screen and we interpret it differently? Are we seeing a different movie? It's like, I know you. I know you and I trust you. And if we come in different conclusions, I'm not going to question you. I'm going to have a conversation. We probably have different angles. And here, usually, I see people turn on each other. Does it make sense to break it down in those steps?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I liked how you touched also on the, what was it? Give me a second. I just lost it.
Take your time.
Run through your just briefly those
Yeah, it was so.
steps or elements or components you said.
So number one, ramp up the emotions. Get people to be
Oh,
really suggestible. So
Yeah.
it creates some level of danger or uncertainty. The danger might be, is there a danger or what should we do about it? Then number two will be someone
Yeah.
saying, let me decode the situation to you. I'll tell you what's going on. I'll tell you what to think. I'll tell you what you need to do so you don't have to think about it. And then afterwards it was, I believe this, I want to believe it. I'm going to use confirmation bias to cherry pick the data that shows that I'm right, ignore everything that shows that I might not be 100% right. And everyone around me is encouraging me to do this. And if I were to disagree, I'd be threatened. So basically, there's no incentive to stop believing the hoax.
Yeah, and their whole worldview and reality is reliant on them believing that hoax,
Mm,
right? And that is why there also isn't a lot of thought towards, even if the hoax is confirming their bias or their thoughts or beliefs, right? They might not have um, a strong emotional response, but they're also not going to go wrestle with it
mhm.
because their whole entire worldview, their self image is reliant on these hoaxes being true, right? So no one's going to go, some people might, but not a lot of people are going to go wrestle with something that, if wrong, would tear down their whole reality,
Mm,
their whole self image, right?
yes.
Um, so that's like, another way hoaxes are leveraged as well. It's like we just need to throw some bait out there that they're going to believe or they need to believe because they're not going to be wrestling with this. They need it to be true.
That's true. And this leads me on to a tangent. Why would anyone be motivated to stop believing a hoax? I mean, there's so much upside to believing it. You don't have to think, you keep all of your friends, everything's comfortable. Why would anyone care about finding out that something basically they've been lied to and changing their mind?
Yeah. Well, we've seen it, and usually it's we've seen some big names come forward and say their minds were changed and they had to reevaluate everything.
Mm,
But it was because the hoax, it got to some point, right, where they found out the truth. And that truth was so mind blowing to them. And they realized what had been done to them that they have to go unravel it. And then they start thinking, well, what else is there?
hmm
So there's anger that's behind some of that. Like, wow, that was done to me. What else? Um, but yeah, and there have been a lot of prominent cases or prominent names where they talk about what led them to start wrestling with hoaxes, and it
hmm
usually comes down because they saw uh, the extra 5 seconds of the original clip
Yep.
just accidentally, and they were like, "Wait a minute, that just reversed the whole meaning of it." And my whole entire belief structure and belief system
Mm,
as it regards to religion or politics or anything was just broken with just an extra 5 seconds of the clip, and then they have to reevaluate everything. So
yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I think it's one of the powerful things about the truth is that once we know something to be true and we can feel it, we
Hmm.
can try to ignore it, but it doesn't really go away.
Hmm.
And we can be a very stubborn species and really try to pretend that we didn't see it. Some people are much better than others, but I think most of us deep down inside, if we know something isn't true, there's this feeling of probably fairness, feeling of doing the right thing, feeling that
Sure.
you see. I just take the image that comes to mind of like two kids play, one of them breaks something or steals something, the other one gets in trouble. Most of us would go, well, that's not the way it's supposed to be. I'm not going to let the innocent one get in trouble, regardless of what's happening. It feels wrong. It feels unelegant. I know some people overweight the feeling of safety, but that's like the same in cults. Some people feel so comfortable in there that they don't want to leave, and they'll do. Oh, this reminds me of talking about cults. There was a mockumentary done some years ago by an American guy who of Indian origin who pretended to be a guru. got a few people to follow him, and at the end of, I think, 6 months or a year, basically says, by the way, I'm just an American guy. I was just pretending to be a guru, doing an Indian accent. Most of them, I mean, they were all surprised. Most of them took it well. One person was so furious she walked away and disappeared. And I mean, everything he said was pretty much, down to earth, common sense knowledge. At one point, he just translated slogans like "just do it" into Hindi. But he spoke about it, and it's like common sense, personal development stuff. But for some people, I think it's around the worldview shattering that's so painful to take, and possibly also the ego shattering, and maybe the fear of, well, if the thing I believe to be true isn't true, then what am I? Who am I? And the world becomes a scary place. And then
Mhm.
they might be trying to go back into it used to feel nice and comfortable before, and I don't want to be growing up.
Mhm. Yeah, no one wants to, and our brains aren't really meant for that, to reevaluate those questions, to ask those questions,
Mm.
right? Like, who am I? What do I believe? What's which one? Like, which of my beliefs are wrong? Um, like, our brains aren't meant to handle those questions.
Hmm.
Um, we can ask them, but it's not meant to. We're not meant to. Our brains aren't designed to recreate our whole identity several times throughout our lives. You
That's a
know.
good point. It is about the identity, very much. Our worldview roughly reflects on who we are, how we think we are. And so, yes, whilst we might be attracted to the truth, there's also the allure of safety, which isn't easy to let go of.
Mm,
And then I think also different people have different levels of tolerance of just how wrong is it, just how important is it, and possibly also the thing of, if I realize this is wrong, I might start losing my friends and family. So I think a few of us have been a bit naive to say, "Hey, did you know that that was wrong?" And then people start, well, glitching, and
mm.
then attacks become personal. That's
Yeah, it's interesting. If you are someone who can say, I'm okay,
mhm,
like, I might have been wrong about this, I might have these circumstances in my life, but I'm okay.
mm,
You're much more likely to be able to be wrong
mhm.
and have flexible beliefs and self image than someone who is not able to say, like, I'm okay.
Yep,
Like, I can be wrong about this. I don't have to be so stuck in my ways. If you're not able to do that, you have a hard time asking these questions about truth and whether you're right or wrong. You hear something from the media or a politician, and, like, instead of just taking it as truth, wrestling with it,
mm.
right? If you can't say, I'm okay, regardless of what's going on in the world around me, it's hard to do those things.
That's a good point. And when you talk about being okay, are you referring to the "I'm okay, you're okay" framework? Are you familiar with that?
I was referring to that. You're
Okay.
probably much more familiar with that framework than I am.
I read a book, so
Okay.
on the
What
framework.
book
But
was that?
well, "I'm okay, you're okay" by, what's his name?
Okay.
Thomas Harris, I think. "I'm
All
okay,
right.
you're okay." Great book. Highly recommend it. It builds on transactional analysis. And have you heard about that?
No.
Okay, I'll run you through it because I think it explains a lot of what's going on around the hoaxes. The idea with transactional analysis is we all move between different quote unquote ego states throughout the day. An ego state is a role that we play and that we learned to play when we were children. Like if I say, let's play Harry Potter, and I say, you're going to be Harry and I'm going to be Dumbledore, it's not the same thing as if I'm Voldemort and you are Hagrid. So we understand the role we're supposed to play. And if you want to be Luke Skywalker and I'm going to be Frodo, we're playing the wrong game, different game. So when we're children, we observe how people move around us, how people function. Some people, we view them as adults. Adults are rational with space for emotions. They
Hmm.
treat other people as equals. They're really cool. They're in control of their life. They're not condescending. They don't talk down to people or talk up to people. A lot of the archetypes of heroes that we see are people becoming adults already as adults. So growing into their power as adults. Then we've got the child ego state. And children want to feel safe and to be loved. Because if they're loved, then they're safe. It's a thing of being cave children. If we're being attacked and the 12 cave children, and one of them is a little bit lazy and a bit negative, and the saber-toothed tiger attacks, we might go, listen, just Dave, wait for your turn, okay? The others come in, just wait for your turn. So we really need to feel safe, otherwise we're likely to die. There are four kinds of children: the natural child who wants to play and learn and have fun and become an adult through play; the adapted child who's taught you have to do something different. Stop asking so many questions. Go and clean your room. You know what you're supposed to do, or else. There's always a threat. Then we have the rebel. The rebel is like the teenager, the one who criticizes the parents. You want me to clean my room? Have you seen your room? You're a hypocrite. Anyway, this is unfair. Anyway, those people are bad. The rebel can be triggered by a parent who says, the other parent is a bad parent. I'm the nice parent. And then the rebel will turn against the other one. It's an interesting form of manipulation. So natural, adapted, rebel, and the last one is the little professor. The little professor wants to show how well they know things, how well they understand things. They did the homework. That's the did you know that ice is frozen water? It's like, yeah, we got that. Did you know that wine is fermented grape juice? Yep. Did you know? And then you've got like the first year college student trying to explain the world to someone who's 65, as in, did you know my sociology professor told me whatever, and that's how the world is. And if they can do that, they'll get good grades and they're going to be safe and loved. Then you've got the parents. Parents is anyone in a position of authority: teacher, doctor, lawyer, professor, personality like celebrity, real parent, someone older than us, anyone we look up to. Two kinds of them. Nurturing parent, he says, wow, you've done amazing work. Like your American Debunk work is really, we're very impressed. Congratulations. So proud of you. And so, of course, we feel glowing because somebody that we look up to says something nice to us. Then critical parent. I can't believe you did that. You're completely wrong. Who do you think you are? Why would you do such a thing? Did you not know that you're completely wrong about this? In other words, when we hear those, we typically fall into the child mode unless we can get back into the adult mode. So what I'm thinking around this with the I'm okay, you're okay, if we're okay, we're both adults. If we're not okay, we're putting ourselves as children and putting a parent up there who's going to tell us how the world is so we can feel safe. Or if we're not okay, we're acting as a parent, trying to put someone else down and make them believe what we're supposed to believe or what we think is true. There's something around those dynamics. So the I'm okay, you're okay dynamic is we're both equals, like you do you, just hope it works for you. If I'm not okay, I'm likely to be an adapted child where someone scolds me because I didn't believe the latest hoax, or I start questioning it and they attack me because it means I'm a bad person, or they're saying, or they're using a hoax to discredit the other parent or another parent. Like, can you believe those people lie to you? Oh, why would they do that? They must be bad people. So go from good parent to bad parent. Or, little professor, I try to prove that I know the hoax inside out because I did my homework and maybe then I'm going to be loved. But every time it involves putting somebody on a pedestal and sometimes involves ourselves policing the other children, which is a bit like little professor or critical parent going, didn't you know that? And then we recite the thing that we learned by heart, but it's not treating people as adults. It's part of the control and part of feeling safe and part of policing. Make sense?
Yeah, and that is fascinating. Uh, I'm adding that book to my reading list. That is absolutely fascinating. And I'm looking at, like, I just Googled, I'm okay, you're okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
I hit image. There's a cool um, image here where you got four squares, right? And it's basically like, I'm okay, you're not okay, I'm not okay, right? And they're matching up um, on this chart. But I'm okay, you're okay, right? You're happy, but you're also assertive. I'm okay, you're not okay, that usually that person's aggressive.
Hmm.
It's interesting. I'm not okay, but you're okay. I'm helpless and I'm passive.
Mm.
And then I'm not okay and you're not okay. That is passive aggressiveness and
Hmm.
hopelessness. Yeah, that's all very interesting. And I like how um, analyze that and use that for how people handle hoaxes.
Hmm. It also makes me
Fascinating stuff.
think with all of those squares, it makes, like you describe it really well. It also makes me think part of the hoax, part of the goal of the hoax to me, it feels like it's making people fall out of the I'm okay, you're okay. It's having power over them to basically say, you're not okay. So, like, a hoax is never positive, I think.
Hmm.
It wouldn't be it wouldn't be putting someone in more positive light or even accurate light. It's putting people in negative light. In other words, you're not okay because of a lie. And that
Hmm.
person's not okay because of a lie, as opposed to like, you do you, whatever's going on. People are complex. It's people are simple. That's a bad person, and that's going to create some kind of anxiety. Like if I said if I said that there's someone in town who's got an obsession with eating bananas and they put on a bit too much weight because of bananas, we shrug it off as being completely irrelevant. It's a lie, but it's an irrelevant lie. Whereas if it's a lie that produces anxiety and frustration, that then makes people fall down in the worldview and look for, oh, you know what this makes me think of? Have you heard of the drama triangle?
I have not.
Okay, you're going to love this because it just clicked in my mind. It goes something like this. In a drama triangle, you need three players. And again, it's roles being played. Again, part of transactional analysis.
Yeah.
Eric Byrne did the transactional analysis stuff, by the way, Dr. Eric Byrne. Drama triangle, at the bottom, you have a victim. The victim is helpless. The victim is being victimized by a perpetrator. The perpetrator is mean and evil and horrible and enjoys victimizing the victim. The victim looks for a toxic savior to help them feel better, not exit the situation, but feel better. If they exit the situation, they're no longer a victim.
Hmm.
If they grow up, they're no longer a victim. If you replace the perpetrator, they'll find another perpetrator because victim is part of their identity. The reason why the savior is a toxic savior is that the toxic savior needs a victim to play savior. The toxic savior will say, that's terrible. Oh, maybe you could do this, maybe you could do that. The person who helps the victim get out will ask, well, what are you going to do about it? In what ways are not working for you? What are your options? And can coach them through the options instead of maintain them in victim. But I was thinking, as we're talking right now, the hoax creator is offering meaning, a feeling of meaning and safety, even though it's usually a very bleak vision, which puts them as toxic savior. It turns the person being, or the object of the hoax, portrays them as being a perpetrator, so a bad person, mean person, and usually to me it comes across as being a bit of a cartoon character, cartoon version of humans, whereas we know we're all complex, you know, pros and cons and so on, turns them into a cartoon version, and it makes the person who's being hoaxed, or the people, or the collectivity being hoaxed, makes them feel hopeless and like victims.
Hmm.
Something along those lines.
Yeah, and that's what they want. They
Mm,
they wanna they wanna feel like a victim. Would you say the the rescuer, right? Because there's the rescuer and the perpetrator or the
yeah.
persecutor. Um, in this model, is the rescuer actually the rescuer, or to the is it just the rescuer to the victim? Like, is the rescuer the good person,
No.
or okay, so the rescuer is saying, yes, you are oppressed
Yes.
and you're a victim, and here's the oppressor. Which is
Exactly.
very narcissistic, right?
It's
Like
ex- it's exactly what happens. The
it's
games that
being the
happen.
middleman and being like, you're oppressed, here's the oppressor, and here's these that person could say like, here's these hoaxes, like, look,
Mhm.
and they're keeping them in that victim mindset and headspace. right?
Exactly.
Um, but they walk as if they are the rescuer.
So it's that's it. And it becomes even more perverse because the roles change. So, like you were saying, the person claiming to be the rescuer or the savior, and I like adding toxic rescuer, toxic savior, because they're not
Mhm.
really rescuing or saving.
Mhm.
They're just acting out the role. They can be a
Mhm.
hidden perpetrator. And they can tell the victim that the victim actually is a hidden savior. And sometimes the perpetrator is actually the victim of the hoax. What can also happen is the victim says, I'm being victimized by this horrible perpetrator. They tell the savior, I need you to save me. I need your help. But actually, the victim is a hidden perpetrator. The person playing savior actually is a victim, but they don't realize it. And then they turn to someone else for sympathy because things are really tough and everything's horrible. So the roles move around. That's why it's a drama, like toxic drama triangle. Any kind of playing in there is awful. So when people say, I'm going to go and help others, I'm going to save others, they're playing into the toxic drama triangle. They're not making anything better. They're feeding a toxic dynamic, feeling good about it, but it doesn't make sense. It doesn't really help the people. It's just about playing the toxidemic, playing rescuer, playing rescuer, but also victimizing people, some of whom actually do want to get out of it. They want to break out of it, but they're prevented from doing it because then we have no one to play with.
Yeah. And the victim is often stuck in this oppressor versus oppressed mindset or worldview
Mm-hmm.
for their whole lives.
Yep.
I would say that's something that's developed in someone, that mindset of that worldview filter of oppressed versus oppressor. That's fostered like
Oh yeah.
super young. Um,
This is it comes from a few things: lack of development, lack of empathy, lack of
mm,
understanding nuance. But one of the big people behind the theory of it, Karl Marx, was somebody with severe personality disorders. He felt that he was entitled to everything. He was highly manipulative. Just had a terrible relationship with his own family. Friedrich Engels, who was supposed to be his co-author. So this is absolutely crazy. Engels' girlfriend Mary Burns dies. Marx writes a letter to her to him. And you can look it up, and it goes something like this: My dear Engels, I'm really sorry that Mary's died, but anyway, I've got some real problems. Here's my life, all of this, all of this. Now that she's dead, maybe you can spare a bit of money because my family really needs the money. And then ends up with, I'm so sorry, I just spoke about myself. I wish my mother had died instead of Mary, but anyway, don't forget me. I need some money. And you go, I mean, if that's not textbook cluster B personality disorder, I don't know what is. And you see the theories he came up with, those are, I mean, you can copy paste those onto narcissism, and it's the same thing. I'm entitled to this. People who don't give it to me are awful people. I'm a victim. I deserve all of this, but I'm going to save other people because I'm a genius. And it's the whole like textbook examples of, yeah, cluster B thinking.
sure, sure.
And it seems to me that the hoaxes are one of the tools to keep people in this dynamic. Like when reality isn't sufficient, you take it, hoax it, and it seems to me it's using the principle of inversion because it seems to me it usually is a 180-degree, like the opposite of the situation that's being portrayed. Is that about right? So it's not like 10% different, it's exactly the opposite.
Yeah, with a lot of these for sure. Basically, any of them where it's selective video editing,
Hmm.
it's a complete 180,
Hmm.
and it's pure evil, right? Because some of these hoaxes are, well, they've gotten people seriously hurt,
Hmm.
right? Because people who believe the hoaxes, and if you believe some of these, then the world you're living in is this hostile, chaotic place that is going to end. Like something needs to be done, or else everything's going to go off the rails, and we'll cease to have this type of society, or we'll cease to have a nation, right? It's like end of the world stuff. Um, and yeah, it's pure evil because you
You,
walk around. A lot of people walk around with these, uh, beliefs that are just not true at all. And
mm,
it's like I can't imagine being in that headspace where if I believe those things that they believe, like I don't know how I would function in life, and the world wouldn't make sense.
yep.
The world wouldn't make sense. So then they begin hallucinating, right?
Mm,
That, things are all falling apart around me when
mm,
not really. Nothing's really falling apart, but um, I like how you put toxic in front of rescuer
mm.
because it's toxic. And in a lot of cases, it's downright evil. Some of the hoaxes that have been created and pushed on others.
Mm. Yeah, it's. I mean, the toxic word is important, and I'll talk in a second about the empowerment dynamic, which is the opposite of the drama triangle, the Karpman drama triangle. So it was researcher Karpman who created it, Karpman. But just before that, one of the key parts of hoaxes is inversion. So doing exactly the opposite. Inversion is one of the surprisingly or not surprisingly, it's one of the key ideas in Satanism.
Hmm.
You take something and you present it as being exactly the opposite of what it is. And it seems that when we do that, it's a bit like when you look at a light for too long, like a picture, white background and something black, and then you look away and you see it in the retina the other way around. It's that type of illusion. If it's exactly the opposite, we get a massive blind spot for some reason, and we can't see things for what they are. And the thing that I keep coming back to is if someone whom I trust is commenting on how the world is, I have an intellectual resting point that I believe that I trust. If I got this one wrong, everything else is going to collapse around me.
Hmm.
And to me, this is an indication I'm relying on this person as a building block, as a foundation, instead of instead of relying on myself. If I rely on myself, I'm going to be wrong about people. It's sort of fine. I can readapt, but I'm actually standing on my own 2 feet as opposed to trying to build on quicksand. And to me, that feeling of things collapsing is a sign that it's a bit like there's something rotten in the house. You need to burn it down to see where the solid things stand. You burn it down, the stone will stand and the rotten wood will be gone. I'm thinking also about, just in order to compare this, there's someone that we care about a lot who passed away recently, and it was really difficult for me. But it was not the feeling of my entire world is collapsing. It was the feeling of there's a big hole, and I'm really going to miss something, and I wish I cherished it more. But it's not that
Mm-hmm.
my worldview is collapsing. My worldview is the same. It's just someone I bizarrely really loved is no longer there, and
Mm-hmm.
never got to tell him just how much I appreciated him. But it's not the same feeling. Whereas when I've been in a relationship with, unfortunately, toxic people, people with a class B personality disorder, at one point I didn't understand anything about the world, about myself, about how people function. There were things I assumed to be true, such as if someone says something, they mean what they say. And at one point I realized, well, of course they're lying. But then you go, why would you lie about that? Why would a hinged person lie about it? Then you realize, well, some people have a personality disorder. They'll say whatever it takes to get whatever they need, as opposed to roughly trying to align what comes out of their mouth with what happens in their head and what happens in their heart. And when it's the inversion, they can say the opposite. They'll say whatever's effective, as opposed to trying to be honest, genuine, and straightforward.
And it's it's the in I guess you'd call them inversioners.
Hmm.
It's the people who can do that that are the ones who are who have the capacity to create and push the hoaxes. Like,
Hmm.
I don't have the capacity to frame someone as, unless they really were, but like frame someone as like the next Benito Mussolini or Stalin.
Hmm.
Like, there's a normal guy. Like, if I really believe someone was the next Stalin,
Hmm.
right? It'd be easy for me to do that.
Yeah.
But to take someone who is not, right? And we know that some people believe that they don't really believe what they're saying about other people, because then they'll go shake their hand and they'll have dinner together. And then the next day they're saying this person's Stalin. And it's like, well, you just had dinner with Stalin.
Yeah.
You wouldn't do that if you really thought it was Stalin. But man, you have to be very twisted and
Yes.
toxic and unhinged to do those types of things and say those types of things and frame someone like that who isn't.
Yeah.
I can't fathom that.
To
Even
me,
people I disagree with 100%, like, I can't imagine doing that to them.
absolutely. To me, like I think of you do a graph with how bad you think someone is and how you describe them. And we'd assume we try to be accurate. So it's a line going from, where the XY axis going from the 0, 0 coordinate to the 10, 10 coordinate. The thing is, I find hinged people tend to not exaggerate. We tend to reduce a bit because we might be wrong. And we want to give a bit of the benefit of the doubt to the other person. And this, to me, by the way, is one of the key points around toxic people, cluster B personality disorder, narcissists, and so on, is in any situation, we can think of multiple explanations, somewhere between the most charitable one and the worst imaginable one. So we'll try to be accurate and go, well, I can see both. I think we're somewhere in the middle. I could be wrong. So we tend to nuance what we say. But the toxic people will say that the worst imaginable interpretation is the only acceptable one. And
Hmm.
if you don't agree with that, then, and it's sort of the piranha culture, then we're coming for you. And normally I go, well, we don't know exactly what was happening. We can think of a few of them. We're probably somewhere between all of those. So if I see the next Stalin showing up, I'd probably say I'm pretty concerned that it looks like it could be going that direction. I hope I'm wrong. And this, incidentally, to me, that this might be one of the big tells of the hoaxes. It's something like this. I see it going this direction, but I hope I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm relieved. Whereas when we believe hoaxes, it's like, this is going in the worst direction, and I get angry when you suggest I could be wrong. So I take the example. We're in a plane, the plane's going to land, and it feels like the motor's turned off. It happened to me once. It was terrifying. I was convinced that we were going to crash. So slept, it slept, woken up, and so on. And, I was concerned about it. I was hoping I'd be wrong. But imagine the person next to you says, oh, we're definitely dying. All of us are dying. You go, I think it's okay. No, 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 we're dying. Definitely. Everyone's dying. Everyone's going to die. We're going to crash and we're not going to survive. You go, well, it might be the case, but I think we're okay. I hope we're okay. And then you land and everyone's fine. A hinged person would say, thank goodness I was wrong. I was so worried. I'm so happy I was wrong. Unhinged people or hoaxed people or dogmatic people will get angry that they were wrong, even though the alternative would be they'd be dead.
Hmm. When the predictions don't come true, that's cognitive dissonance,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because what they're observing isn't aligning with their beliefs or their
Mm-hmm.
prediction, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that can get very messy. Um,
Do you
and
rem-
people throw around the term hallucinations,
Yes.
but you really are distorting reality. Like, if that happens and that plane lands, and you can't believe that that plane landed, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are going to start really distorting reality around you. You're not going to be
Yeah.
seeing the plane crash and burn, but you're going to be making up some sort of excuse. There's some sort of uh, hallucination, or your mind's going to be doing something to bring back harmony
Mm.
and establish harmony in your mind because you just put a lot of um, put a lot of weight into that plane crashing.
Yes.
It didn't
You
crash. There
right.
needs to be some sort of remedy to that if you're not going to change your mind.
Yeah. That's you're right. A lot of effort going into making my prediction doesn't come true. I have to justify why I wasn't wrong when actually clearly I was wrong. So there's usually anger around that. And there's a model I created to explain this. I'll summarize it for you because when I created it's like, oh, okay, this is what I've been trying to explain. This is what I've been seeing, which is normally if we were rational, and we know we're not rational, but if we were rational, we'd come to conclusions based on number one, data, that we would input in some kind of algorithm where we overweight, underweight the data and try to make sense of it. That would produce a conclusion, and we'd compare the conclusion to reality, see where it doesn't match, and that produces more data, and we'd move around in a circle until the conclusion and reality match. So we can make predictions, and we get a relatively accurate understanding of reality, which otherwise remains a mystery. What happens in reality is people start with a conclusion. I know this to be true. Then they work backwards, they cherry pick the data, and they overweight, underweight the algorithms and how they weight it to prove that the conclusion is true. And when it doesn't match reality, their conclusion is reality is wrong, it must change.
Mm.
So they're working backwards, and anything that gets in the way of my conclusion being right is a source of anger. And my sense is the hoaxes take part in reinforcing the pre-existing beliefs.
Yep.
They're a way of sometimes stating things that are obviously insane in terms of what is being said, how it's being interpreted. Like some things, a few of them come to mind. Some of them you go, on paper, this sounds completely nuts. And yet people believe it. And I think the more crazy it sounds, the more effective it is. And it's sort of oh, you know what it
Mm.
reminds me of? Loyalty test. I'm going to say something outrageous. If you believe it, you're going to convince yourself that I'm right because it's going to be hard for you to say that you believe something completely ridiculous. So if anything, the bigger the lie, the more effective it is because it filters in, filters out people, especially if the person saying the lie is in a position of parent, position of authority, and other people are saying, well, we believe all of this, so you better do it too. That's a bit like the psychological test with the different lines of different, you probably heard of that. People being shown lines of different lengths and being asked which one is longer. And when the group was saying that the medium one was the longest, a number of people would agree with the group because they thought there might be something wrong with me. I mean, I trust other people
Mhm.
probably know better, so it's safer to go along than to go, I think you're all wrong, and I'm the only person who's seeing that you're wrong. The king is naked.
Yeah, a little bit of social proof there too,
Mm,
right? It's like
exactly.
this is how everyone's doing it this way. Everyone's saying this.
Mm,
I'm gonna go with that, right?
yeah.
Basic heuristic there.
Exactly. So how could someone tell if they've been hoaxed? Do you have any tips? Or how do you recognize hoaxes?
Well, it's a little easy. It's been easy for me to recognize a hoax because I spent hundreds of hours creating a website to debunk them. Um,
Oh, can you remind us what is the address of the website?
yeah, AmericanDebunk.com.
Excellent.
But you can never know for sure. But when you, for example, if I'm shown a clip, right, and someone's telling me what I should believe based on this clip or the meaning of the clip, I'm automatically going to be skeptical,
Mm,
right?
mhm.
Um, if somebody brands something like um, gives it a name and it's a sticky name and I'm hearing that name over and over, I'm hearing the same words over and over, I'm going to be skeptical of whether that's going to be true, right? And when people speak in extremes, I'm always going to be skeptical, but you can protect yourself from being manipulated or deceived um, by it's hard to disattach yourself from
Hmm.
what's going on around you, but you need to be in a way disattached to what's going on around you, and you got to be able to take a step back and say, I could be wrong.
Hmm.
I could be wrong. By just asking yourself, I could be wrong, or telling yourself I could be wrong, that is something that's going to help you, um, be a little more hoax resistant, right? And have a little more
Yep.
skepticism by admitting you might be wrong. But
This is,
yeah, you never know. And I find myself too, like, I was with a group of friends and we were talking about the website that debunks hoaxes, and they were like, you know, what other ones might you add?
mhm.
And I'm thinking, well, I don't know. I bet there's a lot that could be on there that aren't, because like I might believe them. I wouldn't know they're a hoax,
Hmm.
right? So it's easier to spot them in other people than it is yourself. But
Yep.
um,
That makes me think, listening to you here, a few things. Number one, something I really like about your website is everything you've written there aims to be accurate. And I recognize the accuracy. You're not saying this is how you should interpret it. Like in my model, it is let's get the facts to be accurate and let's talk about the accuracy. You do with it what you want. But when people are claiming inaccurate facts are true, we're going to review them. We'll see what's accurate. Work from there, whichever way you want. And I've noticed when interpretations, sort of what you were saying, when they're black or white, binary, good, bad, and so on, that's probably a sign that something a bit fishy is going on. And also, when people are scared of the conclusions, as in, if your take on accuracy is true, then, and then there's fear. That to me is a sign that there's been some hoaxing going on, because otherwise you'd just be curious, going, wow, that's fascinating. Of course I changed my mind. But if people are concerned that they'd have to change their mind, there's something weird going on.
yeah, for sure. And another thing I'll point out is on the site, there's a whole page where that just goes through all the various hoax methods that are typically used in politics by both sides.
Hmm.
There's about 15 to 16 listed there.
Hmm.
And just familiarizing yourself with what kind of techniques are being used is helpful defense, right? Because you might see something and you could be like, oh, well, that looks like, oh, well, that story used um, anonymous sources. So
Hmm.
I already know about anonymous sources, right? Like that could just be laundered information that's made up, right? Um, so you kind of pick up on things like that if you're familiar with how lies are created and how hoaxes are created, you can be on better defense. And that's just not with, one team. It's with every
Hmm.
team and every tribe.
Yes. This makes me think of um see how to put it together. It's something like this. In the model I used data, algorithm, conclusions, and reality. If we can agree on what the data is, it's one thing. But when somebody takes their conclusions and presents that as data, that's dishonest. That makes me
Mm,
think of junk food. Junk food is processed food. Food might have been involved at one point in time, but it's no longer food. It's not basic ingredients. So if someone shows me frozen lasagna and says, this is a raw ingredient, it's a lie. It's there's stuff that's been mixed into it, but it's no longer food. And,
mhm,
it's what I see with junk news. Instead of being factual, they come with a conclusion, present their conclusion as being an original source, sometimes conflating facts and opinions, which can be really messy to see through. And when people have a worldview, I like to use, there's a filter I like to use for it, which is a useful worldview has to meet at least one of the three following criteria. Number one, it has to be falsifiable. That was Karl Popper, the social scientist. who was saying if it's not falsifiable, it's dogma and it's not serious thinking. So if we can't falsify, it's not serious. Number one should be falsifiable. Number two, preferably, it should be the case, as well as being falsifiable, it should help us predict accurately.
Hmm.
So if I believe the new Stalin is coming to power somewhere, and I predict that they're going to be gulags and concentration camps and famine, and there's no famine and people are doing okay, and I can't notice any gulags, or it's, 500 people going to prison as opposed to 500,000, clearly my prediction is pretty wrong. Back when I was at college, university, in the late 90s, early 2000s, the prediction I was getting from the media I was reading was humanity's going to run out of drinking water. Is going to be massive wars all over the place. And by 2020, we're going to be living in Mad Max land. So don't have children because you don't want them to live in that kind of hellhole. And, be ready to kill yourself because when it turns into Mad Max, it's going to be horrible. So to say the prediction was off a little bit is an understatement. It was catastrophically off. So, I realize doomsday predictions usually are pretty bad. And all those people, I remember them now, and it's like I can't listen to them. Just in the same way, the people who were protesting the World Economic Forum 25 years ago were saying the World Economic Forum is terrible. They want to remove tariffs. They want to ban everything. They want free trade. And the same people now are saying the United States are terrible. They want to introduce tariffs and they don't want free trade. It's like if you do a 180-degree flip on your opinion, you should at least explain why you did it. And I'm old enough to remember it. But it means when I hear them now, it's like you're just bad faith actors. You're just blabbing anything. So number one, falsifiable. Number two, predict accurately. And number
Hmm.
three, if it fails the first two criteria, it should at least make you feel happy. So if you want to believe in angels, believe in angels. It's going to make you feel great. Not
Hmm.
falsifiable, can't predict, makes you feel good. But if it's something like I think the plane's going to crash, that's terrible. If it's we're going to end up in Mad Max land, that's terrible.
Wow. Wow. So who was that? Who said that?
That's the three things. Well, I pick
Yeah.
what is it? The first one from Karl Popper. It should be
Okay.
falsifiable. Number two, Scott Adams should predict.
Yes.
And
Okay.
number three, I think I threw in I threw in the angels. It's like, well, some
Yeah.
things I believe they just make me feel happy, so it's not bad.
The predictability thing, the prediction thing, it might be the easiest or best thing someone could do is to write down their prediction,
Hmm.
right? If you want to see how accurate you're seeing reality, right? Or how accurate your worldview is, how good your worldview is, write down, make a prediction
Hmm.
about anything. If you feel strong emotions towards negative emotions towards a situation or a person, make a prediction and write it down. And you have to revisit that, right? And you do that enough times, hopefully that'll be helpful, right? Help you
Mm.
recalibrate your worldview. Um, I think the trouble a lot of people get in is they make these predictions and then they never reevaluate, partially because they don't want to,
Hmm.
um, because then what would that mean, right?
Hmm.
A lot of worldviews get crumbled that way. But
You
if
know,
you're able to reevaluate that prediction and look at it, that can be super powerful, and that actually would help you recognize hoaxes or be more resistant to hoaxes or more skeptical towards the things you hear
mhm. There's
and say.
there's a point that reminds me of the is to some extent avoiding being dogmatic. So
Mm-hmm.
dogmatism is asserting the non-evident, claiming something to be true and knowable and sure, and looking for an intellectual resting point when it obviously is not true and knowable and sure, and it's an interpretation or a theory. It helps us feel safe, versus suspending our judgment and saying some things are unknowable. I'm going to give my best approximation of a guess. I'm probably going to get it wrong to some extent because I can't be 100% right about everything 100% of the time, because there's a one chance in a million that it's the case, and I'm probably not the chosen one who's going to get everything right. And I've got a big track record of being massively wrong. So my ego is out of play. The only question is, when am I roughly accurate, and when am I completely mistaken? I think that the feeling of someone provides me with certainty and it makes me feel good probably is a tell, as in someone assigned an opinion to me and that makes me feel good. Another one that comes to mind is do you remember the half pinions? Do you remember what those are?
Sure.
So for listeners, if you have two options, A and B, most of the time we'd agree that both have pros and cons. And so everything's a mixed bag. The half pinion would be saying the option I like only has pros and the option I dislike only has cons. So it's not a real opinion, it's a half pinion. And I'm also thinking in terms of the accuracy. When we have a belief, one thing is to see if it's true or not. Another thing would be to ask, for this to be true, what else has to be true? And then we can break down each component and see the accuracy of that. For example, there was one theory, conspiracy, that I won't name him, but some billionaire decided to wipe out all of the human race and go like, or at least a big percentage of it. It's like, I don't know, might be true, might be true. But for that to be true, we'd have to understand, was this his plan all along, or did he get a little bit loopy along the way? If it was his plan all along, that's really playing the long game, waiting decades in order to do it. If he got loopy along the way, when was it? What triggered it? What happened? Or maybe he's just, a bit incompetent. Maybe he's got some strange ideas like most people do. Like, to me, that explanation makes a bit more sense. I don't think he's right on many things. He might be having some really bad ideas or we misinterpret, but I don't really picture him as having a mental breakdown half the way or being loopy and playing the long game.
It's this billionaire wants to destroy the world. Like, I don't think he'd be able to enjoy his money as much when he destroys 80% of the population.
Exactly. It doesn't seem to make very much sense. Oh, it's a bit of a short term view of, I enjoy status and power with fewer people around. Like, it does again. It might be the case, but the alternatives that seem to me to be a little bit more credible.
Yeah, I love playing the what else would have to be true thing
Oh yeah.
with other people. I love doing that. Like,
How,
it's like, you think that's happening?
uh-huh.
Well, what else would have to be true um, for that to happen? And it's interesting. You can ask yourself that question
Mm.
and see if you can think of some other things that'll give you a good tell of where you're at.
How does it work when you do that with them? How do they respond?
Usually people get angry. Yeah, they get angry. Um, yeah, I mean, I have people close to me where they believe some crazy stuff that
Uh-huh.
they see on Facebook, and I'm like, make a prediction,
Hmm.
make a prediction, and we'll see if that prediction comes true. And then jump around a little bit. But yeah, people will tend to get angry if you start pointing out, well, what else would have to be true for that to be true? And then if you give them some examples of that,
Mm.
that's when they might get angry because they start to see what you're doing. You're
Mm.
challenging their beliefs and their belief system.
Yeah, it's I think sometimes we need to get people on board by saying something along the lines of, listen, we can talk about this topic. Let's remember there's a risk that either of us suffers cognitive dissonance. So how
Mhm.
will we know it's going to happen? Then we got the seven different steps. The word salad, hallucinating, some mind reading, changing topic. Um,
Expand to an absurd absolute, right?
exactly. Yes. So, let's be aware of it. And then the emotional response. So let's be aware of it so we can recognize it when it happens. But, how about this as an example? Imagine a family where a family member has been abusing the children in the family. So the kind of thing that nobody wants, like they do not want to imagine that, you know, granddad, grandmom, uncle, aunt, whoever is a child abuser,
Hmm.
and it comes out. So the hoax sort of is, Well, that didn't happen because obviously, we caught them, or we caught something happening, but it's not what we think it was. Oh, it's something along those lines. But I think the violence of the response is sort of similar, which makes it
Hmm.
difficult for victims to talk out because they try to set the record straight and then they get attacked, which can be really confusing and really hurtful.
Yeah, that is similar. Yeah, it reminds me of you're across the pond, but that scandal at Penn State University with the football coach.
Mm.
Do
Tell us
you do
about
you
it.
recall that?
No.
Yeah, this guy was there for he was old, like his whole career was spent there,
Mm.
but he was like using the facility to abuse kids.
Oh.
And then there were people who would like see it or see evidence of it, and they would like they would ignore it, right? And it's like, yo, how do all of these people ignore it? Something so heinous.
Mm.
Um, but there's a lot of psychology behind it, right? With um, which is why some people don't speak up. But yeah, you're right about that.
Listening to you, though, I thought of something. And tell me if you think there's something to this. There's a term I like, which is proxy thinking. Proxy thinking substitutes one thing with another. In other words, how can I assess who's a good person, bad person, like safe person, dangerous person? Well, I will see if they do stuff for the community. If they do stuff for the community, that tells me something about their character, so I don't have to evaluate the character or assess the character. So someone spending time with kids must be a great person, so it's impossible that they would molest any child. So if any child says something, the child must be bitter, jealous, a liar, something like that, because otherwise it means I can't use proxy thinking to think, and I have to reconsider
Hmm.
how I observe people, how I consider people, which then has the worldview collapse of, you know, I was wrong. I was wrong, and I've made mistakes, and I probably made more mistakes, and maybe the mistakes harm people. And I really get the image of living in two different bubbles, and there's one bubble where we're scared of being wrong, and we have the proxy thinking, which is comfortable. And I think probably usually associated with, I'm such a smart person, I got this figured out. Like, you know, people who give time to charities and NGOs are great people. Therefore, X, Y, Z. And I feel like it seems like it's the building blocks of the perception of reality. And if you touch upon those, everything crumbles down. So you've got the two options. I'm wrong about pretty much everything I believe, or I can just attack you as a person. Like, one of them is going to be much easier than the other.
And people will go with the option that protects their ego the most,
Mm.
right?
Which makes me think, to what extent the hoaxes are they not designed to play into confirmation bias and the pre-existing beliefs? It seems like they're not random. Like it'd be difficult to create a random hoax on something nobody cares about. So it's like, does it follow tribalism or does it create tribal? It's probably back and forth between following and creating and reinforcing.
Yeah, it's probably a reinforcement, right? It's probably a cycle of both. Um, yeah. Um, Sorry, I heard my kid yell,
That's okay.
but we're still good. What was your question?
Okay. No, I was wondering if it follows the tribalism, it's probably just comes, or possibly when there's a bit of tribalism, it
Yeah,
creates the conditions for people to be receptive to hoaxes because they want to believe the hoax, regardless of how
mhm.
bad it is.
Yeah, yeah. They're anchored in some sort of belief,
Hmm.
right? And then the hoaxes reinforce that belief. So, like you were talking about earlier, with people have they come to the conclusion first, right?
Hmm.
And then the hoaxes are something that they can now use as evidence, right? Or confirmation bias
Hmm.
for their belief.
It's interesting.
Work
You're right.
backwards in that sense because no one's going to, I mean, at this point in time, and it depends on the topic, right?
Hmm.
Um, no one's going to change have a conclusion, right? That might be you can be on this side of the we'll go into the political realm for a minute.
Hmm.
You can be on this side of the spectrum or this side of the spectrum, right?
Hmm.
And sometimes hoaxes are for people on this side of the spectrum,
Yes.
right? No one on this side is going to hear, uh, for example, hoaxes on my website and then switch their thinking. Like their conclusion's not going to change,
Hmm.
right? Hoaxes aren't necessarily there to change your conclusion. They're there to strengthen your conclusion, or they're there so that you have evidence, right, as
Yes,
to why you're here at this conclusion. It's a positive feedback loop.
that's true. That's making me think of with the different bubbles. Probably one of the roles is to reinforce the bubble because other people won't be aware of it. There
Mm,
was the case of a I won't say which one, a broadcasting network that that recognized that they'd created a hoax by chipping out an hour of a speech. And I know people who stopped talking to each other in the same family because some of them had seen the hoax and they believed that to be accurate, and others had seen the full speech. And so they couldn't understand why the other people were coming to opposite conclusions when they thought they'd seen the same thing, but they hadn't seen the same thing. And I
mm,
mean, they literally stopped talking to each other, going like, "This is completely insane." But going back to the squirrel example, how can you say we should go and eat squirrels? Completely insane. But the person never said that. As of course they did. We saw it because they were hoaxed. And I think there's the unawareness of what information the other person gets. Whereas the work you do is going, let's start with getting the facts right. Like if we can't even agree on the facts, there's no point moving on to conclusions because we're not even agreeing on what we're seeing. So let's break it down.
yeah, yeah. The bubble thing, the bubble analogy is good. And then it makes you think, what bubble am I in?
Mm,
How can I get out of my bubble? How can I make my bubble bigger?
yeah,
Because that's super important. Um, you don't want to be trapped in a bubble.
that's true.
Nothing, nothing. It's good. It's good to. I mean, we're tribal people, right? And we all have values, right?
Mm,
And a lot of times, it's good to be around people with similar values than you
hmm.
and beliefs. Like that's healthy, but it's also unhealthy to just live inside of that bubble.
Mm.
You got to get out of your bubble.
Yeah, and I think if we want to develop a bit of, that's probably one reason why it works, a bit of empathy is being
Mm-hmm.
able to say, I can understand people who disagree with me and I can present their point of view in a way where they say, you pretty much understood how I feel about this, what I think about this. And I find that that's where you have the good faith disagreements. And where we have bad faith disagreements is when it turns into ad hominem attacks and these are bad people. And and they can't like you were saying before, they take somebody's position, exaggerate it to the point it's completely ridiculous. I take the and what other the few of them being bad at statistics, making this that is not being able to make the distinction between a blanket statement and a generalization. One would be, um, let's say, the French people like cheese. Okay, generally French people like cheese. I'm not saying that French people only eat cheese. I'm not saying that only French people eat cheese. I'm not saying that French people eat more cheese than anyone else. It's by and large, compared to many other countries, the French eat a lot of cheese. Uh, but if people take that and try to make it sound as though I'm claiming that only French people only eat cheese and nobody else eats cheese, is a complete misrepresentation of what I was saying.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people can't decipher that either.
Mm. That's crazy. It's something I've been seeing recently. They can't decipher it. They don't understand. So a generalization would be generally Dutch people are taller than people from Malta, who are known to be relatively short, which
Yeah.
is not saying that every person in Malta is short and every Dutch person is tall, just on average. But they conflate averages and absolutes. And something that completely blew my mind recently, some people don't understand Venn diagrams. Like they don't get it. They don't understand. Europe is a big circle. Inside Europe, you have different countries, and inside each country, you've got different regions. So there was one podcaster recently who said, "I'm from Russia. I live in the UK. I'm British, but I'm not English." People lost it, and he was basically saying, "I'm in the UK. People living in the UK Venn diagram with a passport, but ethnically it's a sub Venn diagram." And they go, "So you just said that," and they don't understand different levels of thinking. And then, of course, that
Yeah.
became a hoax where people say, he just said that people who are not white can't be British. And it's like, he literally said the opposite. And I hear it. It's like, if I didn't know about hoaxes, I'd think they were, I was about to use the R word, they were cognitively impaired, but they just don't
Yeah.
understand Venn diagrams. And I think that's part of the hoax thing is, well, you tell me about this. I think it how do I put it? It seems like it leverages cognitive biases to make them sound like the opposite, to mix up Venn diagrams, to oppose generalizations and blanket statements. So to actually leverage the with the intellectual blind spots we have, the heuristics, to purposefully confuse us when it's difficult enough to increase clarity, they're increasing confusion on purpose, and it seems like the brain can't keep up.
No, it's putting the brain on overdrive.
Mm.
It's putting the brain on overdrive. That's interesting. I've seen people throw that around on X where it's people and they'll say, they don't understand Venn diagrams, but people will also say, this person, like people don't have reading comprehension.
Yeah, true.
Like I said this statement, right, about the French love cheese.
Hmm.
Nowhere in here does it say the French make the best cheese. It's literally people reading it
Yeah.
and hallucinating, and they don't, because they see everything through an absolute. Like it's all absolutes, and they can't see nuance.
What that makes me think of, because we were tapping into a little bit we started off with how they respond to creating a strong emotional reaction of anger or fear. The thing about a strong emotional reaction to fear, well, to fear is I need to be safe, and to anger is I need to overcome the obstacle or eliminate the threat. So it could be a combination of the two. And with fear, we know the four responses: fight, flight, run away if we can't fight, freeze if we shouldn't move, or fawn to try to seduce the object of the fear. What comes to mind here is I see an object of fear, a cause of fear, something that is a threat. I want to fight it, so the anger helps me fight it. There's also possibly in the back of my head, if I don't fight it, then I'm afraid my tribe is going to turn against me. I'm in cognitively in overdrive, laser focused on removing the threat, then logic just gets in the way. If somebody goes, well, I know you're trying to beat up that person, but try using a Venn diagram, see things from a point of view. It's like you can't tell an angry elephant that's charging that they should slow down and try to use the logical brain because they want to eliminate the threat and they want to be part of the tribe. And we're trying to say, I think you misunderstood something. Try to calm down. It seems like it's impossible for it to work.
Yeah, that's a good analogy with the or a metaphor with the elephant running. Um, so when you're trying to show someone they've been hoaxed,
Hmm.
right? There's implications to what you just said then,
Hmm.
on how to do it. So being skilled in persuasion is helpful, but being cognizant of, hey, showing like you when you're showing someone they've been hoaxed, right? You need to be aware that what you're doing, what you might be doing,
Hmm.
or what you might expect is them to get super angry,
Hmm.
right? But it's super important to be intentional and thoughtful then. And it begs the question, like, what is the best way to go about showing someone they've been lied to?
Hmm.
Like, how is that done with empathy and caution,
Hmm.
um, and gentleness?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I'll run this by you offline or
Hmm.
let you know about it offline, but there are people who are kind of working on that behind the scenes because it's a
Hmm.
huge need,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
How do you show someone that something they believe is wrong? And it's not an opinion,
Yeah.
it's no, look, this is like objective,
Absolutely.
right?
The
And because if you spike them into anger or strong emotions, they'll never be able to see it.
mm,
So it's like, how do we go about it so that that elephant isn't charging?
Absolutely.
How can we
The
get the elephant to sit down and just, be open to new ideas or beliefs, right?
so to me, what I've seen work best is to start with, is the person's mind completely closed to it? Or are they open considering the possibility that maybe? And it's something like this. On the off chance you are not 100% right about everything, would you want to know that? Or would you prefer to believe something that it turns out is inaccurate? What is the end result you want? Some people say, "Oh, I know I'm right about everything." It's like, okay, so, but on the off chance, out of 10,000 data points, you got one wrong. Would you care about that? And would you prefer to ignore it? And so break it down into something statistical. It's not about being right or wrong.
Hmm.
It's about we can't be right about everything all the time. At least I don't think we can. Maybe this person claims to be the first, omniscient human being in the history of humanity. It may be, but on the off chance it's not the case. On the off chance I'm not the only person out of 8 billion who has got no blind spots. How would I know? Would I want to know about it? Would I want to correct my mistakes? Um, I was talking with a kid recently who has a professor who's like that, who's convinced they're sure about everything. And we laughed and said, do not ask him the question. But the question would be, have you ever changed your mind in the past? And if somebody has, how do you explain that? Because when you change your mind, you were pretty certain that you were right before you changed your mind, but something changed your mind. How come? How come you change your mind? How come you open to changing your mind? What made you change your mind? Do you have an example of one time you changed your mind? Would you ever change your mind again? And run through this and really take a big step back, just being open to it. Then the next one would be something like, well, on the off chance you got something wrong about a specific topic, how would you know? Let's give you the tools so you can assess what seems accurate and what doesn't seem accurate. I'll never tell you, and this is the key with my model, never tell you what the conclusion is. It's not mine, it's yours. You will come up with it. I'll give you tools to assess if something's accurate, not accurate. I'll give you tools to consider what I'm saying and for you to use it with what I say, which is a bizarre thing I sometimes do in my videos or podcasts, is going, on the off chance I'm doing something dumb, this is how you'd know. I need you to know because I don't want you to trust me because I'm just a face on YouTube or a voice on a podcast. Like, we don't know each other. It's your skin in the game. You need the ownership. I'll share with you the tools. Check everything I say because if I get it wrong, you're paying the price, and that's not cool for you. And I don't want to feel guilty about it. So break it down along those steps. Give them time, give them space, develop a bit of humility, and then probably go through let's take some examples and check. Does this seem accurate? Where does it seem accurate? What parts? How would we know if it wasn't accurate? Like, let's imagine you saw the opposite of what you thought you saw. Would it change something? Would it change anything? It could be, imagine somebody is accused of stealing money in a company. You go, I can't believe they do that. Okay, what would change your mind? Well, if they admitted it, I might change my mind. If I had, but then you could also say they were coerced to admit it. Okay, if I had a video of them doing it, if I had messages of them bragging about it before anybody found out, then all of a sudden the credibility is going up. So what would it take for me to change my mind? Another case in point. I don't believe the world is flat. I'm open to changing my mind. Yeah, I'd be super surprised. But one thing I'd need is a good reason why somebody lied about the world being flat. I don't see why anyone would, but I'd need a few things. Then of course I'd change my mind. I'd be super curious. Or if the moon is made of cheese, like, I don't know, maybe. I don't think so. Be very surprised. But of course, if you come back with a bit of nice French cheese, then, camembert, then okay, then I'll definitely change my mind. So conceptually, I'm open to it, even with the most ludicrous things, which means it's easier for me to assess the different parts. But some people, the mistake people make, so for the behind people trying to work on this, the mistake people make, number one, they try to change the conclusion. That's not true, as opposed to how you got there. That would be, there's a breakup. Turns out one of the people has a personality disorder. And friends go, why do you break up? It's like the person got a personality disorder. It's like, I can't believe that. I've known them for years. As opposed to some things were super weird. I noticed X, Y, Z, and all of those things, which match the definition of personality disorder. I'm not diagnosing them. I'm just saying it matches enough that I really wasn't comfortable. I leave it at that. And then people sometimes go, I noticed those patterns also. Just showing the patterns, I'm not telling you what the conclusion is. Incidentally, the background of how I started working on this, years ago, a friend contacted me out of the blue, asking me, "Do you know this person?" Shows me a photo of the guy called the Maldivian con man, because he was Maldivian and was a con man who stole loads of money from me. And I go, "Yeah," and we speak about it. He had been hoaxed into believing that I'd stolen money from this guy, but didn't quite believe it because he knew me as being a nice chap. And there was a lot of weird stuff going on, such as the guy was now stealing money from his girlfriend after just loads of terrible things. So I started writing this article about signs of toxic people. And as I went along, I recognized patterns between him, another person, an ex, another ex. And that turned into, I'll describe it so he can send the article to her. So hopefully she can go, wow, it looks like he's talking about my boyfriend, and she can make the connection, as opposed to saying the guy's a scammer. So it's running through those pieces, helping people come to their conclusion. Um, Let them come to the conclusion and start with the big picture. The big picture is: are you open to considering you might be wrong? How would you know? What would it take for you to know? If they haven't clarified, don't go any further because it's going to overwhelm them.
Yeah, those are the questions you posed at the beginning of that. They're low risk questions,
Mm,
right? Ones that everyone can say yes to, and that's a powerful first step. So I
yeah,
really love those. And I also love the way you frame it as um sorry, I hope you don't hear my kids yelling.
all
But
good.
a not giving someone the conclusion. You can't do that. That's not going to work. It's going to make the elephant charge.
Yep.
So laying out things that might be objective or some things that might be true, right? And letting people come to their own conclusions is super helpful.
Mm.
Um, Very helpful in all of that.
It's the only way to do it. Otherwise, you're basically telling the elephant you're an idiot, and the elephant, it makes them like you less and listen to you less, as opposed to basically coming with a bit of empathy and saying, you know what, we've all made mistakes, we've all been hoaxed. It's awful, and the reason why we're talking about this is because it's not fair on you. People lying to you is not cool, regardless of in which direction they're lying. Lying isn't cool. Lying produces hell on earth, and you can say, well, I'm lying for good reasons. There's no such thing as lying for good reasons. I mean, apart from, yes, this cake was not burned. Don't worry, it's delicious. That's like to avoid hurting feelings on a very superficial level. When it comes to visions of reality, no, it's catastrophic. It basically deprives people of the ability to think and live, and controls them. I mean, which is why toxic people do it, and why it's so toxic when any group, party, and so on does it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care what anyone believes or how they vote, right? Their
Mm,
personal life choices. Um, Especially when it comes to like politics. I don't care
hmm
how you vote. I don't care about your preferences. I love that you have your own preferences and your preferences can be different than mine. And
hmm
that's totally cool with me. And I'll still have dinner with you, still be my friend, still be family.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like, I just want you to know that these things that a lot of people might believe are true might not be true,
hmm
right? I don't like to see people being manipulated. If they're like, oh, yes, these are hoaxes, but I still prefer all of this,
hmm
I love that. Like
hmm
that's was part of my goal in making the site, like being informed
hmm
of what you being informed of, kind of what's driving a lot of what we see in politics, and being able to still follow your preferences, right?
Absolutely.
Without all this other noise.
That's true. And people could still end up voting for a party saying, I prefer their way to tackle the problem, but I recognize that sometimes they're being dishonest. But given the choice between the two, I think one is going to work better than the other. At least I can recognize the pollution and the dishonesty when it's being used. Both parties are using it, or all three or four parties are using it to some extent. It doesn't work on me, and I can make an informed decision, which is probably going to be a bit more cool emotionally and a bit less anxious and a bit less scared, frustrated or angry. And I'm not going to fall out with friends where, by and large, most of us roughly agree with the end goal in terms of things being good for as many people as possible. We're not sure with how to get there, and sometimes the means backfires. The good intentions. I saw that. I was living in Africa for a while and seeing how the NGOs and United Nations were working. Some of the things they were doing were making the problems worse. And when I pointed out, people got very angry, of course, cognitive dissonance, because it's like the problem you're trying to solve, you're just making it worse and there's an easy solution. But I didn't know the persuasion techniques back then. Otherwise, I do it a bit
Yep.
differently. But, I never said these were bad people. It's simply you're trying to implement policies that are backfiring. There's nothing about you being bad people. You're trying to do something, just I think it's counterproductive. But you know what? I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's working fine. And unfortunately, my predictions were pretty accurate. But I was hoping
Mhm.
to be wrong. Like anytime I got a bad prediction, I hope I'm wrong. I really do.
When in doubt, make a prediction.
Yeah, exactly. I see time has gone by so quickly. Thank you so much. You've been really generous. So you have AmericanDebunk.com. Where can people find you on other social media?
Yeah, just on X at American Debunk. Yeah, I'm mostly active on X.
Hmm.
Um, Not really so much on any other social, but yeah, I encourage people to check out the site.
Mhm.
I was very selective on what goes on that.
Mm.
There's a lot of things other people would love to see on the site that I
Mhm.
don't feel would be right to put on the site, because I don't see it as objective. So it's super selective,
Mhm.
and it's meant to be informational and easily digestible
Mm.
for anyone in high school up. So I encourage everyone to give it a look.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. And I think go and look at it with curiosity. On the off chance something, we spoke about it, something triggers anger, frustration, denial. That's a big one. Oh, that makes me think there's something else. Something else. Let me pull this up very quickly. Did you hear just a few more minutes and then I'll let you go
Hmm.
because you've kept you
Sure.
for a very long time.
Hmm.
Did you hear of the 6 stages of grief? Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, I've heard of that. I'm probably familiar with a few of the stages, but I
I'll,
couldn't recall it
I'll,
off the
I'll
top
run
of my head.
I'll run you through what they are because
Yeah.
probably this is relevant with the debunk thing because we're grieving ideas that we had. We're
Mm.
having to let go of them. And 6 stages of grief, the first one
Huh.
is denial.
Yep.
It can't be true. I don't want it to be true. Can't be true. Not possible. So if you recognize this, so if you go to americandebunk.com and you read something and you go, this can't be true, it's not a sign that it is, but it's not a sign that it isn't. It's a sign that there's some kind of denial. Okay, let's check. Let's check to see if it makes sense. Number one, denial. Number two, anger. Anger could be directed at the person making us grieve the idea, or the fact that we're grieving the idea, or hopefully, if we're grieving the idea, to go, well, somebody lied to me. I'm actually angry at them because why would they lie to me? Like, it's not cool. Good ideas shouldn't require lies. So denial, anger, then bargaining. Bargaining's another one.
Huh.
False hope, a form of negotiation. Yes, well, maybe, and then we start hallucinating a reality that's obviously completely ludicrous. We're basically bargaining with reality. We don't want to accept reality. Maybe this monster I thought was a monster isn't really a monster. Well, we should be relieved. Well, maybe the plane should have crashed but didn't because of whatever reason. Bargaining. Next one, depression. Depression, we're letting go of something. That's a tough one. Much deeper and more persistent. Finally, acceptance.
Hmm.
We're willing to accept reality, how it is. And the last one was added by David Kessler. The last one is finding meaning. We can
Hmm.
find meaning, we can do something positive from it. All of this, by the way, the first five stages, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, psychologist, psychoanalyst, who created these, and then David Kessler added the sixth one. So
Hmm.
I recommend people be familiar with it. So if it's happening to us, we can recognize it and not be triggered by it as much. And even if we're just aware of how we respond emotionally, it adds a little bit of space so our quote unquote rider can regain a little bit of control over the elephant and can also give the elephant a little bit of empathy instead of scolding it for a change.
Sure.
So, on those notes, thank you so much for joining. You've been very generous with your time. I hope people enjoy this and do absolutely check out American Debunk and do follow him on Twitter. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Fred.
Have a great evening.